So I want to talk in this video about the bravery that I have seen in people who stand up to doctors and enormous health systems when they're injured or something happens to their family. The statistics are that only 20% of the people that have valid claims ever bring those claims to a courtroom or ever bring those claims to the attention of the people that harm them. I recently had a conversation with one of my former clients about this very subject.
So there's people going to be out there that are going to be going, do I call? Do I do nothing? The statistics say that only 20% of the people that have something bad happen to them actually call. 80% let it go.
And I could see that. For one thing, you're taking on a huge, I mean, we're talking about my health and me.
Right.
I've learned much about the definition of winning by watching these people as they deal with their efforts to try and change the system, change themselves, and deal with the system that they've been forced into. In fact, it's made a lot of change in me. What I can tell you is that these people get far more than money in their quest to hold the responsible accountable. In a world that prioritizes chasing a dollar, I know that I've learned, and I think we can all learn from their example.
I met a woman who was 45. She and her husband, who was 46, had 3 children. Like millions of other Americans, he was afflicted with heart disease, and he needed bypass surgery. Their local hospital had recently partnered with a group of heart surgeons from a bigger city to start performing surgery at the local hospital. So the couple had a choice. They could have the surgery at the local hospital or travel 2 hours to have it in a bigger city. The couple chose to have the surgery at the local hospital, and the procedure went well. The husband was sent to the ICU after surgery. Unfortunately, there was no doctor in the ICU overnight. No one gave the couple that detail. The husband had a tube down into his lungs, breathing for him as he recovered. And as he started to waken, the tube irritated the husband's windpipe and made him restless. The nurses called a doctor at his home, and the doctor ordered medicine to calm the husband and make him sleep through the night until they could wake him the next morning and remove the tube safely. But the husband continued his restlessness, eventually spitting the tube from his lungs. And without the tube, the man could no longer breathe. The closest doctor to replace the tube was 9 floors below in the ER, and by the time he arrived, the husband had suffered brain damage from a lack of oxygen. A few days later, the wife had to make the decision to withdraw life support and allow her husband to die. To say this woman was wrought with grief would be an understatement. The widow could not bring herself to get past the guilt, the shame that she felt for allowing her husband to have the surgery at this local hospital. She really believed this was all her fault. That guilt and shame affected every aspect of her life. She was consumed by it. As we went through the case, I took the deposition of an expert witness hired by the heart surgeon. And in that deposition, the expert admitted that the woman's husband was the victim of medical negligence. He believed that someone should have been there in the ICU to intubate her husband when the breathing tube came out. I'm never ever going to forget the sound of that woman sobbing as I delivered the news of the expert testimony. Finally, someone in a position of authority acknowledged that it was not her fault that her husband was dead. She told me it was like the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders. She was able to repair her broken relationships and see the case through to its end. And once the hospital was held accountable, she was able to set the incident down and move forward with her life. In another case, I represented a young couple who had had their first child get sick with the flu at 10 months old. The mom took the baby to the pediatrician, and they told her if she kept giving him Pedialyte, he'd be okay. The next day, the mom called the office, just like she was told, indicating the baby was still vomiting. She was reassured and told to keep providing the Pedialyte. Everything would be fine. This went on for another 2 days. She did exactly what the doctor's office told her. She kept calling in and providing information, and the office kept giving her reassurance that her child would be fine. Ultimately, the fluids coming out were much greater than the fluids going in, and the baby died from dehydration. Well, this family lived in a rural section of Ohio that had never in its history found a doctor negligent. The people were convinced that if they found fault with their doctors, the doctors would leave and they wouldn't have doctors to care for them and their children. Still, we marshaled on with the case through trial and showed how the pediatrician's office was negligent for not bringing the child back into the office or sending the mom to the hospital with the baby when she kept calling back with the continued complaints. I had world-class experts, and I felt like Atticus Finch while cross-examining the doctor and his experts, getting admissions that they should have done things differently. While the jury was out, the judge in chambers and the opposing lawyer were congratulating me on being the first lawyer to obtain a victory for a client in a medical negligence case in the county's entire history. 6 hours into deliberations, a verdict. 6-2 for the defense. We lost. I met with the couple and they went home. I sat in that courtroom for several hours, wondering where I had failed. I cried. What had I done wrong? That loss sat with me like a weight on my shoulders for months. And then I received a card from the couple with a handwritten note thanking me for everything that we had done for them. I was so confused. We had lost. They explained that even though the jury had not had the courage to hold the pediatrician's office accountable, they knew what had happened and why it had happened. And they were able to put it down and move forward with their lives. And we had helped them do that. They were forever grateful for us providing them with that closure.
We didn't win, but I still was able to make things better for that family. I learned a very valuable lesson from that case.
It's the process that's important, not the result. The greatest part of my job is that regardless of whether we recover $1 or $1 million, I get to help people move out of the deepest part of their grief and depression following a tragedy. Many times when they come to me, they feel stuck in a rut with a great weight on their shoulders. And learning what happened and why it happened allows people to remove this weight from their shoulders. or at least lighten it a bit. They never forget, but somehow knowing the truth of what happened allows them to move forward with their lives. There's a real catharsis that occurs with learning the truth.
Win or lose, I get to make things better for the people that we serve. Over my 25 years as a lawyer, I've distributed hundreds of millions of dollars to people who've been injured by preventable medical errors. And what I can tell you is that in each and every circumstance, the smiles that those people have has nothing to do with the money that they're about to receive. It has to do with the change that they've been able to affect in themselves and in the system. They know that they need the money to take care of the damages that have been done. And they know that they need the money to make the responsible accountable, because they know that hospitals don't change unless they have to pay lots of money. Think about the times in your life where you have failed and where you have succeeded. I'd be willing to bet that when you failed and when you succeeded, you gave the same effort. So, that's the lesson that I've learned from my clients, is that winning is in the effort. It's not in the result. While we're in the process, we don't know whether we're going to succeed or whether we're going to fail. All we know is that we have to give the same effort regardless. That's winning. If you let go of the result, then you can be happy in the process. And you'll be happy regardless of the result. And by the way, you're going to succeed more than you fail. I'm making these videos to share my journey, to show how our why controls every aspect of our life, whether we want it to or not. I hope that in these videos, there's something in each of them that people who watch can take away and use in their own journey. You can find these videos here on this website or on our website at caseyinjury.com. Thanks for watching, and be well.